Good morning. I now call the January 14, 2020 work session of the Marion County School Board to order at 9:00 a.m. Please silence your electronic devices to avoid disturbing others. I'll now ask the school board attorney to explain the rules of this board meeting.
This work session is a public meeting as defined in Florida Sunshine Law. The board is dedicated to full transparency in its meeting and its work. In compliance with the Sunshine Law, the board has adopted uniform meeting procedures, including the right for citizens to participate. The board will allow public comments regarding any work session item listed on today's agenda at the appropriate time. Speakers must fill out a request form and hand it in to the school board secretary. After the board and superintendent have completed their discussion on a particular agenda item, the secretary will call the speaker's name in the order received. At the podium, speakers are asked to state their full name and address and to spell their last name. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. As required by the Sunshine Law, the board must maintain orderly conduct and proper decorum throughout this meeting. Speakers may criticize subject matter and decisions in a respectful manner, but not people. Finally, speakers must be careful not to violate the privacy rights of others, especially students and their family members, by mentioning their names or other identifying information. Thank you for your attention to these rules.
We will now begin the work session with the superintendent's administrative briefing.
Nothing this morning. We'll get right to the agenda.
Thank you. Our first order of business is Evergreen Elementary School options. Mr. Ayers?
Why don't you come on up as well, sir, and y'all can tag team.
Do you have the clicker?
Good morning, everyone. Vice Chair, excuse me, let me start over. Good morning, Chair Cummings, Vice Chair Thrower, and board members, Dr. Mayer, Mrs. Martinez Lopez, and Attorney Green. This morning, we're here to speak about Evergreen Elementary School options in our turnaround status. The turnaround status has a specific statute, 1008.33, and this gives the authority to enforce public school improvement. So if a school has 2 consecutive grades of a D or 1 grade of an F, then it triggers the turnaround status, which includes intensive intervention and support strategies for the school from both the district and the state level, as well as a district-managed turnaround plan that begins the first fall after the turnaround status begins. And if the grade is not a C or higher after the first year, then there's 1 additional full year given. And after that, then the district is required to choose another option. And this is further spelled out in Rule, I won't go through that whole entire number there, Rule 6A, which is the school improvement state system of support for deficient and failing schools. So Evergreen right now is a Tier 3 school improvement school. We've completed 1 or more years of that turnaround cycle, and we're still not at a C or higher. And the rule outlines the turnaround options that are available to the school: reassignment and closure, charter school, an external operator or outside entity. Here is the history since the 14-15 school year for Evergreen, and we are currently in our 2nd year of external operator, and that school grade will be out this summer. At this time, we're doing contingency planning for the next school year in the event that Evergreen does not make a C or better. Last week, you received a copy of the letter from Chancellor Oliva outlining that we would not be eligible, the state would not recommend that we receive an extra year for external operator as our continuing plan. And so with that, we will select a different plan. And we are extremely thrilled today to have two wonderful guests with us. We have both Miss Melissa Ramsey, who is the Vice Chancellor for the Department of Education, and Mr. Dusty Sims. He's our Regional Executive Director for the Bureau of School Improvement. And they are both here for your questions and to have dialogue over options next. We talked last week about the charter option, and they're both here to answer those questions. You also have a one-page document that looks like this that Ms. Ramsey brought this morning.
Thank you.
So with that, I did not receive any questions last week or yesterday from board members for our guests, but you're welcome to obviously ask them now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We got the letter, I guess, from Oliva last week concerning the options. For me, I felt like we kind of got, our hands were tied on what we have to do now. So can you kind of explain this process going forward?
Thank you. I would like to refer to the one-pager you have in front of you. At the top, under turnaround plan deadlines for Evergreen Elementary School, it actually tells you the process, and there's a check box by the district shall submit a form entitled Top 3 Options to the department by November 1st. And Marion County did do that on behalf of Evergreen Elementary School and requested an additional year of turnaround under an external operator. That is the reason for the letter, is because after discussion with the commissioner as well as senior leadership, we knew that that option would not be recommended at the next state board meeting. So we wanted to be proactive and notify the district in conversation, which I had with Dr. Mayer, as well as a follow-up letter, so you were informed regarding this recommendation. We did have 6 schools from 5 districts that did submit an intent to have an additional year of turnaround. 3 were for external operator and 3 were for district managed turnaround, and all were recommended denial. So I do want to let you know that. It wasn't that Evergreen Elementary School was the only one that was going to be recommended for denial. I think that's important to note. You'll notice the 3 circles are what still needs to transpire in this proactive approach to prepare for the 2021 school year for Evergreen Elementary School. The next step is to actually submit a form entitled Top 2, which is the actual turnaround plan draft to the department with the charter option. So that's due January 31st, and we knew that date was fast approaching, and we appreciate Marion County and the superintendent taking action so quickly to ensure that you're moving forward on this plan to be in place if needed. If the school grade for Evergreen Elementary School is not a C or higher in July when school grades come out, then you're ready to go to the next cycle of turnaround, which would be charter. And you can see that since this is the option being reviewed, the next date, the district would submit a contract, a draft contract with the charter operator to the department no later than May 1st. And then in July, after school grades are issued, that turnaround plan that's submitted in January at the end of this month as well as the contract, would be presented to the State Board of Education for approval. So that is the turnaround plan, deadline, process that you're exploring right now for Evergreen Elementary. On this one pager is also the rule language. You'll see Rule 6A-1099811 outlining the charter Step 1 and Step 2 options. We also referenced, which was already in the PowerPoint presented by Dr. Hull, the statute language that's the authority to enforce public school improvement. And so we can answer any questions you may have about this option.
I have a question. We have a question. Okay. Once it's opens up as a charter, is it for a certain amount of time, or is it forever, or how does that work?
That's negotiated in your charter contract with the district. However, at any time a school receives a school grade that's in turnaround of a C or higher, they exit turnaround status and our authority to enforce public school improvement. As you know, Dusty Sims and his team support Evergreen Elementary School and do so under this authority of school improvement. So once a school moves to a grade of C or higher, that authority to visit the school and have his supervision is also removed. So if Marion County has a charter agreement regarding Evergreen, the details are up to the district as the extent of that charter.
So, but would a charter company come in here and invest its energy for a year? I mean, what are you seeing out there for the charter schools coming in? I mean, that's almost like an external operator. If it's just for a year, it's no different, actually. So,
Okay. Board Member Stacy, how this works is that we've only had one charter turnaround option in the history of this state, and that was Jefferson County.
they're still
And
there.
There was some extenuating circumstances. That district was actually in a financial emergency, and at the time I worked closely with that district to ensure that they had a long-term plan of action due to 13 years of failure.
Right, and they're still there. So what is their contract then with the school district? How many years are they going to stay?
You would have to look at their contract.
Okay.
They're no longer under our preview. Once they made a grade of C or higher, they're no longer under this.
Because I know they're still there.
So basically what you're saying is once they, even if you bring in a charter school, once they get a grade of C, they don't have to remain a charter school?
No, that's your negotiations. That's your authority to
That's based on the
determine that
contract.
in your contract negotiations. And an important point that Board Stacy made is that you might not have a charter that says we will only come here for 1 year. We need a longer-term contract. But again, that's in the negotiations and conversations you have with the charter organization.
Do you have a list of charter organizations that are approved? I mean, what kind of track record do they have to have or anything?
What it says in the rule, you'll look at 10A2, ensure the district enters into a contract with a charter or multiple charters that have a record of turning around a high-poverty school serving low-performing students with similar demographics, or a charter school with a record of high performance. So you have several options there. That was added into the rule this last year after we realized that there are not a lot of charter organizations
That's what I'm going to
that
say.
have turnaround experience within Florida.
That's where I'm getting to. So we really have just a few options.
Well, no, I just referred you to the actual rule that gives you.
But they have to have a history and they have to have,
No, it says or. Where it says or, It refers to a record of high performance.
Well, that's what I
You wouldn't
mean.
want to ask a charter organization to come in if their record was low performance.
What I'm saying is, there's not a whole lot of those.
There's a lot of charter organizations that have high performance. That's
And
why
they
that
have to
was
be in
added
Florida, or
to
can they be outside of Florida?
They can be outside of
Okay,
Florida. They
okay.
just have a proven record of experience in turnaround or high performance.
Ms. Thor?
Morning. I understand that we have to go through this process in anticipation of Evergreen possibly not making the C. However, I'm a positive, realistic thinker, and Evergreen only missed its C by 2 points last year. So I'm feeling very positive that they are going to make that grade and then some this year. That being said, it appeared to be a little bit of a misnomer that I see the first checkbox here, the district shall submit a form, the top one, 3 options. It seems to me that one of the options had already been taken away. It would have probably been more clear to have just said we were down to 2 options. So I just wanted to point that out. And then turning my attention to the letter from Mr. Oliva, the last paragraph about that the superintendent may comment on the request of an additional year of turnaround under the direction of an external operator at the January 29th state board meeting. I think this is important because in terms of stability, we had a different external operator the first year. This year, we have a new external operator. And what this school really needs more than anything else is solid, stable leadership. And so it's difficult for me to entertain the idea of going into something different yet again. It's like, how much can this community take? So I'm very hopeful that we will not have to have this option exercise. I understand we need to pick one, but I am going to use every bit of my energy and thinking to support the school so that we don't end up in this situation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Thrower. And I'll just reiterate where it says the checkbox, it says the form entitled Top 1, 3 Options, which outlines each option. And you are correct. Evergreen has already used the option of external operator.
Right.
And the reason for the request is you met the requirements in the rule to ask for the request of an extension. However, that is what is being recommended by our commissioner for denial.
I know.
And that is why in the letter it states there's an opportunity to plead your case at the next state board meeting to get into the details of how Evergreen is in its first year with a new external operator and showing progress.
Right.
And I know you've been on campus many times, and our team has, showing the positive progress. And I believe that the new principal is also in the room, who's done a tremendous job.
Yeah, I don't see her. She's at school. And further, too, it's going to be very important once Evergreen, again, thinking positive, does make the grade, how we are going to support that school going forward so that we retain the teachers, we retain the leadership, we keep listening to the community to make sure that they are, continue to be really involved in the decision-making and the conversation. So I'm almost more concerned in a way about what will happen when we do make the grade. Like, where do we go from here? Because this is all outlined for us. But the future is not if they do well. And so we're going to need to really navigate that together.
And that was going to be my comment, that we really need to look at what happens when they do make the C, and I feel confident that they have the ability to. And I would, Dr. Mayor, whoever does the presentation at the state board meeting, I would love for them to reiterate exactly what Mrs. Thrower has just said, that the stability factor is huge for this school, and to once again topsy-turvy, turn it totally upside down, and not let this external operator, which we have a lot of confidence in, continue to grow that. I am very disappointed that we worked through last year when we were told, and we had already made the decision that that external operator was not working, and then you all reiterated that. We worked very hard in looking at the person that had the ability, we felt, because of her record, to turn Evergreen around. And they were so close to that C, and I feel like they're going to get there, but I'm very concerned about flip-flopping again. I think that sends the wrong message, whether it's politically correct or not. It sends the wrong message to that community. And so whoever makes that presentation, I think, needs to be very clear with the state board that we feel the stabilization is as important as anything at this point. My other concern, which is that we are talking about redistricting children. All right. So if we don't make a C, and we have talked about redistricting those children, I believe, Ms. Ramsey, correct me if I'm wrong, must be in high-performing classrooms. Is that correct? So if they come out, if we redistrict and take 118, is that what it is?
Currently, the 112 are attending.
Okay, 112 that we're moving to schools that are closer. If Evergreen does not make a C, where does that put us with that redistricting? And that's a big question in my mind with those children.
And thank you very much for your support through all of this. As you shared, Ms. Ramsey, this is almost completely uncharted territory, first school in the state, and you were mentioning, so we're working through this together, and your ongoing support is really appreciated.
So can you have a, yes, please, because that's going to be an issue with us.
Call for students under your district zoning, again, they could go to different schools. That's the privy of the district to decide. Those children would have the opportunity to select school choice if they were to return to Evergreen anyway. And in school choice, they would need to go to a higher performing school. However, because this school is not closing if it goes to charter in 2021 and the grade is below a C, then again, that's up to the district for the zoning and placement of those students. However, the best interest of the students would be to ensure a highly effective teacher for those students for their future.
Okay, so it would not affect the rezoning that we're trying to get these students much closer to their homes.
It's not under the privy of the school improvement statute or the rule.
Okay,
Which has been a big role in their academic struggles, because
Yep.
if
Right.
you're not coming to school, you're not getting instruction.
And I concur with my board, with my colleagues, that for the past 3 years, this school has been in upheaval, but then when we came in with the external operator, it's been one thing after another, and it's still like there's no stability. So that's why we were trying to get some stability by asking for the extension. And then to come in and say that we can't get the extension, and you've taken all options, basically, they've taken the options away. We are being kind of forced into going into this route. I'm expecting Evergreen also to get a C, at least a C, but it's not even a decision that we have to make. The decision has already been made for us.
decision is made.
So all we have to do is just file the paperwork, Dr. Mayor, and be in compliance with the law. We won't break the law. We will stay in compliance with the law, but it's not a decision that we even have to make.
Well, and pleading for extenuating circumstances
Yes.
at that upcoming meeting, state board meeting, is going to be important. And is there a possibility then that that decision would be reversed, knowing the details of our situation with this school here in Marion County and how passionate we are about making sure that they do succeed and then create a path for continued success.
And Chair Cummings, agree with your comment that it is written step-by-step process, but instead of waiting to speak at the next state board meeting, if that was the decision of this board and superintendent, I would say that you might want to take bolder steps, as one of the other districts has, and that is to invite the commissioner and senior leadership to visit Evergreen Elementary School to see firsthand what's going on that campus. One of the other districts that's in the same situation, as I mentioned, there's three districts. They invited the commissioner last Friday. And I haven't heard the outcome, but I understand his visit was wonderful. So I would say to take a step back and see what you can do, and then also follow the rules and statutes.
And let me ask another question. Is there some type of appeals process to any of this?
But your appeals process, Chair, would be to go before the state board,
Just-
knowing that the commissioner's possible recommendation at this point in time would be to not recommend an additional year for Evergreen Elementary School. However, he answers to a board as well, and they could, based on the 5-minute presentation, decide to go against the commissioner's recommendation. However, I must say, under a new commissioner since last January of 2019, that has not been the case. They have agreed with his recommendations thus far.
So I think we get him here. Let's
I
make
love
that
what you said about a
invitation.
bolder step.
Yeah.
Let's make that invitation right away and see if we can't get him here to observe and truly see what's going on at Evergreen Elementary.
I agree. Board members, any board members?
Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Dr. McElwain.
Thank you again for being here. We appreciate it. And we did do a community survey for Evergreen. Remember, we asked those folks what they would want. And let's remember, they did choose charter. So,
I thought they chose external.
well,
I thought there was-
the numbers, well, they had, that was one of the options. So that was a favorable response. So we can
A lot of
resend
them
those
did go for
numbers.
Well,
charter.
Yeah.
no. The paperwork said that there was only, only other option was charter, but we could request
Yes.
an extension. So it wasn't that they chose charter, that was the only option they could choose. Am I right?
Well, there was another
Or to
survey.
go to school?
There was another survey that said, there was
Yeah.
one survey that was like 70 for charter and 100 for this other, but it was a real high percentage. Is that the one you're talking about, Dr. Mayor? Or have y'all done two
I
surveys? or
believe we're
just-
talking about.
There was only two options.
Is
The only
Dr.
two
Hull
options
still
were to
here?
close
Oh,
or
there she
to
is.
charter.
Yeah,
So what?
because I remember the survey going around, and we were gathering parents at Thanksgiving to really get them done.
Right.
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but so how the survey was laid out is that we could request an extension.
Correct.
And also, we needed to choose an option in the event that our extension was not granted.
Right.
So that there were high numbers for requesting the extension, and then of the two options, charter was higher than closure.
Correct.
And closure to me is,
What percentage asked for a request to extend the, was that a higher percentage than
He
charter?
doesn't have that.
I would like to look directly at the numbers to tell you that, but I do believe it is higher for requesting the extension.
There was, because I remember the charter was the second in numbers,
Right.
whatever it
I
was.
believe so too. I just would like to have the numbers in front of me.
The charter was a large group, but the majority was for the extension.
yes, ma'am.
So that needs to be a part of the discussion on January 29th at the state board, that we surveyed the school community, and this was what they would like to see us be able to do.
And he needs to hear it during his visit, too, and not hear it
Yes.
for the first time at this state board
We also
meeting.
need to give them the numbers that did choose charter, because it was pretty high.
Right.
And again, I believe you're referencing a survey, and I'm sure you've also had your community assessment team meetings that are required. There should be minutes from those meetings that also give the state of the community's perception of what should happen at Evergreen Elementary School, which is very important in this decision-making process.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr.
Yes, so with this charter option, I know this is a little different than a typical charter school. Could you give us some information on what the district would look like? So if Evergreen becomes a charter, are the students still in a district? Is it open to everybody? How is this going to work?
Superintendent, a lot of that would be negotiated in your contract, but please remember that that school and students, if you don't get the C or higher, are still under school turnaround and under the state statute authority. So that is where it's different. We would still be going in and supporting the school in our collaborative efforts. There would still be those weekly contacts. So it's similar to the EO position now, but yet a lot of the details would have to be negotiated with that charter organization on the specifics of, for example, what curriculum would be used. What went into the EO contract is similar to the charter contract.
Okay, and then would you all still be doing your visits and monitoring and everything?
Yes.
And then understood that if the grade of C or better is achieved, then that would depend on the contract, what happens next. What would happen if the charter does not earn a C or better?
It's turnaround is a 2-year cycle, just as we have had for district managed turnaround, and now the EO is having the opportunity for a 2-year cycle, even though it's been 2 different EOs at Evergreen. But the charter would have that same timeline outlined. However, it would be reviewed after 1 year. There is the opportunity in rule for an annual contract to be reviewed.
So that would be on us to put that in the contract?
Yes.
Okay.
And two, when backing up to the first year that charter was an option for turnaround, we did have several districts that submitted a charter contract that had a stipulation that if the school made a C or higher, they would pay a certain portion of the charter contract and have them on as a partner. I must mention that you have funding outlined that's above and beyond your normal funding for Evergreen. You have UNISIG funding, you have Turnaround Schools Supplemental Services allocation, and you have the supplemental teacher allocation. These funding sources, 2 of them would leave Evergreen Elementary if they make the C or higher. You would still have the Turnaround Schools Supplemental Services allocation, so it's possible in that contract you could use some of that funding to help with a partnership with a charter. And 2, I believe I'm speaking on behalf of the commissioner and his senior leadership. One of the areas of opportunity for growth and school improvement is to develop relationships with external operators and charter organizations earlier on in the process, proactively, if you're a lower performing district. However, we are very proud of Marion. You've shown great turnaround over the last year, especially one of the highest percentages in the state. But I mention that because even though we're talking about Evergreen Elementary in specifics today, I do say that if I was a board member, I would be asking for our group to review this as a proactive practice to have those partnerships lined up in the future if this was to ever happen again, because the timeliness is always the issue. And that would be one way to look at it. I do want to go back, and you had asked a question about if you had the charter option and Evergreen was less than a C. I do want to mention that the teachers that teach there only be effective or highly effective. It would still be under the same authorization as the rule language. So taking that into consideration, a charter would need to agree to that language as well. They could not come in and hire their own teachers that were unsatisfactory or needs improvement
Or non-certified.
or non-certified.
So that would be with state VAM or local VAM?
State VAM.
State VAM, okay.
And then local evaluation system.
Okay, and to go back to what Ms. Thrower mentioned, if the, when Evergreen makes the C and we're all good and fine, they still, and when you say it, it sounds horrible, but they'll still be on the, probably the bottom 300, and so they would still have the support that you mentioned. So we would still be scaffolding that support, correct? It's not like we just leave them hanging.
That's correct, and I mentioned the turnaround school supplemental services allocation. They'd have approximately $180,000 to $200,000 to continue that support for up to 2 years after exiting turnaround, because lessons learned, what we've seen is a high recidivism rate within our low-performing schools. So we want you to think about how you would scaffold the supports at Evergreen to ensure success continues on a long-term plan.
And Dr. Mayor, we've been working with Dr. Holes as well, my team, to support your lowest performing C schools currently, and we would continue that support. And as you know, our team is always here to come in and work with you at any call when we can come to Marion and work in your schools. The great thing is we won't have to be here unless you say, Mr. Sims, I would love for you to come and work. So we would love to continue our working relationship and obviously support Evergreen continually after they do pull out of the C.
So you said that, I was looking at this numbers, you said about the funding, you said they would lose the UNICEF?
That is correct. That's an annual federal grant of school improvement that goes to D or F rated schools. So they would lose that funding, as well as the teachers would lose the allocation. You actually had 5 highly effective state VAM teachers that received $15,000 this year.
Bonuses.
And 3, they're called allocations, 3 effective teachers that received $7,500. That would no longer be available through this funding source. However, my recommendation to ensure that you keep highly effective and effective state VAM teachers at Evergreen would be to pay that out of your turnaround school supplemental services allocation as well.
Dr. Holmes, is that how we've been utilizing the funds thus far?
Yeah, the TESA funds, this is the first year for. And so for our schools that have come out of turnaround, they are using a portion of their money this year to pay for supplements or incentives for allocations for those teachers who are effective or highly effective. And that's based on a 3-year aggregate. And the UNICEF is being used to pay for the same at Evergreen and Oakcrest this year.
Ms. Kynard's here, the area director, and she has to approve all of the school's funding requests, so she could address it more in depth.
Good morning. Yes, Evergreen, since we're speaking directly about Evergreen, we'll continue to speak about Evergreen. Evergreen certainly does receive the UNICEF funds this year because of the D status that they were in. They have not only utilized that money for allocations for effective and highly effective teachers that are retained on that campus, and also ones that we brought into the campus this year for teachers, but also they have utilized those funds for supplemental materials, curriculum resources that they have wanted in their school and needed, and also in addition hired some of the paraprofessionals that they have been able to reduce class size with that, as well as parent liaisons. Or a parent liaison.
Right. This conversation is really important because teachers figure things out, and when they have the ability to earn $15,000 additional money. Some of the smart ones have almost become journeyman teachers, you know? They have their Honda minivan and they put all their materials in there and go on to the next school that needs the help because they know they're not going to have the same kids next year anyway unless they roll up with them in a special circumstance. So why not go on to the next needy school and continue making a lot more money? And while I understand that, it seems really critical to put a mechanism in place so that those teachers don't feel like they need to do that to make the salary that they so deserve to earn.
I don't think I know a whole lot more than I knew before I got here. It's so scary because, okay, for the charter schools have, their funding issues. Their teachers sometimes don't get FRS, and we've got teachers that are going to be at Evergreen, and then the charter school takes over. Will there be requirements that they remain under their retirement system or anything like that, or can the charter school just do the 401 and?
Depends on the contract.
That's negotiated as well.
I know we keep saying that, but
I can tell
to
you
get a charter,
Jefferson,
what's the real?
they did have FRS.
Uncharted territory.
I know, what's the
They did
reality of them
mention that
agreeing?
In their contract. In Jefferson, there was a certain threshold of teachers that they looked at for years of experience and ensured that. So again, negotiated.
I understand where we're at. I do, but I'm just telling you, this is making me sick to my stomach, to be honest with you. Because once again, we're putting the students in a state of anxiety, the parents, as well as the staff there. So the staff at Evergreen have to be saying, we just bought into coming in under external operator and working our butts off, and here it is, if we don't, we're not even gonna get the extension. So I get it, I do get it, I do get the law, I do understand where we are, but once again, it's almost, it's just gonna be nerve-wracking for this. So now they're working, they feel like, again, they've got the gun to their head and saying, you got to make this grade. If they don't make it, it's a tough situation.
Can I comment to that?
Yes, ma'am.
It also makes my stomach sick
Yes.
and heartache when I have students in failing schools for year after year after year with substitutes or unsatisfactory teachers that do not have the opportunities other
Right.
students do in higher performing schools. And so that's why I'm an advocate for this system and that we have to have accountability. I also want to echo that the messaging is very important, the communication with this faculty and staff. You have a tremendous leader that will lead a charge, but just as we've commented about keeping your highly effective and effective teachers at that school and recruiting more for next year would be in the communication that you would ensure that your turnaround school supplemental services allocation would be at least the same thresholds as the supplemental teacher allocation or higher. That is under the jurisdiction of the district to outline that plan that I personally approve. So again, I think proactive opportunities are in front of you, and I challenge this board to review those and be bold in those steps.
I'm gonna talk to Ms. Ramsey. This school probably wouldn't even be having this conversation, but we had the external operator from last year. When he came to work the first day, a year ago, August or whenever, July, when he came a year ago, he didn't come with the same students that were tested the year before. We had removed the gifted program. We had set up a gifted program at that school. It would help to get our school grade up and everything. We moved that program willy-nilly. We had just put it in, and then we yanked it out. We now know that, and it's sad for that external operator, that this information did not get to the Department of Education. Had we left everybody, we would have gotten a C.
Well, you start the school year with your students, whether they're gifted or not, or have learning disabilities.
We pulled all the gifted, so we kind of
With
set.
learning gains, that's not taken into consideration, and that's 4 areas of your school grade.
But
More
proficiency
than,
counts.
yeah, but it only counts 3/7. So 4/7 of your school grade is based on learning gains. And so that factor would not be considered. And again, that cannot be the excuse we use, that external operator wasn't successful. There were a lot of other factors as well.
Well, unfortunately, the school grade, the way it's set up with the Department of Education, does not really reflect what's happening in that school proficiency-wise. I went to the lowest 300, I see schools with A's, with proficiency of 38. I mean, this is a discussion I'll have with Corker and myself as to, because parents go into these schools and they say, oh, it's an A. Nobody looks at proficiency. So we have these A, B, C schools loaded up on your list of lower 300 schools, and they're still in the lowest 300 performing. It's like.
And we also have 25% of our A schools in the state that have a subgroup below proficiency. And I challenge all the parents and community members, as well as you, to look at edu data that shows the data very easily to interpret, where we have subgroups of populations of
We always
students that are
have.
lower performing,
Well,
but they're in A schools, B schools, C schools, and
Right.
all schools.
But when the majority of the students are below proficiency, but yet the school has an A, that is a Department of Education fiasco.
I don't see that very often where there's a majority of students that are below proficient in the school as a A. I would have to
There was one in
review
Collier
that,
County
but
2 years
if you
ago.
give me a name, I will
I'll
definitely
get the name of the
research
school
it.
for you.
Okay. So where we are, we have to move forward. We know what we have to do, Dr. Mayor. But we definitely, as my fellow board members stated, whoever is going to make this presentation, well, first, we need to go ahead and invite the commissioner down here. And we need to do what we need to do to make sure it happens.
Right.
I
Make sure
was-
the school is informed well enough.
I would suggest that whenever we invite him and he does come, I would hope all of our board members would be at Evergreen, and that we publicly notice that so that they know we're gonna be there. But also that whoever makes the presentation to the board really hits those issues of some of the extenuating circumstances that Evergreen has had. Because we want to give them an opportunity to be successful. I think the plan that, the people that we have there now can get us to where we need to go. So,
My concern, though, is if we don't receive our grades till July, correct? So we need to be prepared now, really, with a decision. Because we don't have a choice, and that's what I'm hearing, is basically we don't have a choice, or we could wing it and keep the school open, but it may not be open if they are not a C. So,
We don't have a choice. We have to go to charter.
They won't let us close it.
correct, but we will not know until July.
So that's how we write it into the contract, though, like we
So-
did with the external operator.
But we can't begin a charter in July and open up in August. I mean, as we've learned this past month, Marion Military closed, and here we are a month later, and it's been a bumpy road and unorganized and stuff. So, we may not like what we're hearing, but this is what the cards were being dealt with, I think, and it has been a failing school for many, many, many years. I personally am not opposed to looking at a charter school option just because I want to see that school be successful. I want that community to be successful, and I don't want us to be caught in July going, oops, we didn't pass with the C again, and be let down, and then have, and not be prepared. So personally, me as a board member, I kind of, I guess if we want to take the bold steps and do it swiftly, but this isn't something we can just drag our feet on and kick the can down the
And
road
I
because
think-
it's coming.
I think we need to start looking
We need to go
at
first.
charters
Charters, yeah.
I think we
and
do.
do what we did with the external operator with the fact that
Yeah.
if they don't make the C, and that can be written into the contract. But yes,
Like
absolutely.
Dr. Mayor just said.
So we
We have to be prepared.
So we do need to
Yes.
start the process of putting out there that we're looking for a charter.
Yes.
Because the
school.
contracts
Right,
do
because the contract will be due
May
May
something.
Yep.
May 1st.
May 1st. So we do need to go ahead and
So
start
we
that
need to make a
process now.
decision.
Okay, if we
and-
take the bold charge, though, and we have Mr. Corcoran here, how quickly would he give us a decision, do you think? Since it's not happened before.
By January 29th at the latest.
He would give us like, that we can do the external operator, then we wouldn't be doing a charter search.
That's when the state board will either accept his recommendation or accept what we've said. And what they're saying to us is, at this
So we will know
point-
then.
At this point, he will not accept our recommendation, and therefore we will be a charter school. That's as of today. Is that right, Ms. Ramsey? Is that what we're hearing?
That is correct.
Thank
And
you.
I-
And he doesn't have all the information yet.
Okay, but how fast can we get him here? I mean, you know, that's,
But we still,
we only have 2 weeks left in the
Got him
month.
there in 4 days.
Okay.
well, we still need
Yeah,
to.
because obviously it's his sense of urgency as well as ours.
Right. If we're, because of the system of urgency, we have to still move on both
Forward.
tangents.
Absolutely.
We have to still go ahead and invite him here. Dr.
And we only
Mayor,
have 2 weeks left to do that.
right.
Right.
We need to go ahead and invite him here, but we also need to start the process of looking for a charter school.
Without a doubt.
So
Without a
we
doubt.
need to start both processes today. Today,
Because we're not accepting of reassignment and closure.
right.
And can I just comment too, even though school grades come out in July, a lot of the raw data is available early in June.
We'll
And
know.
districts are,
Mr. McGowan.
they know the algorithm and
Right.
formulas to be
Right.
able
Yeah,
to
Mr.
predict
McGowan's
very
a good-
closely.
But
Yes.
So I'm
still
sure
to.
that
hire-
experts in the room.
Right,
He's our
but still
wizard.
to hire a charter and make all these decisions and get things
process.
moving, we need to know before June to open a school. I mean, I understand how government works, how this process works, and it is not done quickly. And so as a board, I know we don't like what we heard, but I think we need to mentally be prepared
absolutely.
and thinking about the next step. So I'm just
Absolutely.
leaving it at that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's move forward. Thank you, Ms. Ramsey.
Right,
Sam.
thank you very much.
So, Ms. Kleiner. Mr. Harris, you got anything else?
Mr. Ayers has a presentation. You had asked about what if you wanted to do a district managed charter for Evergreen, so
We want to
with
do
that
public
information.
comment on what we just heard before we
Yes.
move into that?
Yes. Before we move forward, is there any public comment concerning what we have? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, Mr. Harris.
5 minutes, or what are we doing?
Thank you.
Lina.
TC Matthews.
Matthews, TC is spelled Teecy, 2708 Southeast 16th Street, Ocala, Florida 34471. Board Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning, Vice Chair, board members. How are you?
Great.
Let me start by saying this. I know who you have in there as the external operator for Evergreen Elementary, and I know the level of expertise that is there. So my gut is you probably are going to see that grade increase, especially with the knowledge that they were only 2 points away last year. With that being said, though, you have heard from the Department of Ed that your next step, if that doesn't occur, is to take that school and bring in a charter school. And you have 2 options, as she shared with you. It read very distinctly that you could contract with a charter that has a record of turning around high-poverty schools serving low-performing students with similar demographics, or a charter school with a record of high performance. And if memory serves me, a charter school of high performance is a charter school that has shown an A for 2 or more years within a 3-year period. No? Incorrect.
High performance would be the opposite of low performing, which in our state is a D or F. We would
So
like
a
to
high
see
performing-
history of performance,
Oh, forgive me.
a C or higher.
So a C or higher, that's even better. Thank you. Thank you. So you have some real options there. Ocala Charter Middle School is all about supporting the efforts of our district, but more importantly, ensuring that the children of our district are served with excellence. That's okay, Dr. Mayor. We would like to put out there that we would entertain the conversation of potentially going from a K-8 school, from a 6 to 8 school to a K-8 school. And that is a possibility. We do have a record of turning around a school that was not only academically ineffective, but was also financially ineffective, and is now performing C or higher for the past 2 years, and we are looking at a B for the upcoming year. So I just put that out there, and I'm also open to answer any questions that you may have about charter schools, how quickly they can get turned around, up and running, and what you would be looking at in that scenario. Because I want to help you to take away some of the fear of the possibility of that being a charter. Do you have any questions?
I do. How long would it take?
Ms.
Or
Kim,
no?
I kind of think we should do this kind of the appropriate, let them make the presentation. It seems a bit like solicitation and not.
Okay.
Oh, forgive me. I didn't mean it to be solicitation. I apologize.
I understand. No, I
Yeah,
just think we should work through the.
Right.
Would it be okay if I answer any questions that they have about charter schools in general?
Is
Not sure they have any of that, but.
Okay, if you don't, then
Okay. Thank you.
my pleasure.
Thank you.
So we will try and get the process for finding a charter school company that was willing to come in. Any other public comments before Mr. Harris comes? Thank you.
All right. Good morning.
Morning.
Chair, Madam Co-Chair, board members, Dr. Mayor, Ms. Elena Martinez Lopez, and Attorney Green. Welcome. All right, so today I'm here to present a morphed presentation that talks about Evergreen options, and then also basically district-managed charter schools, because we've had several conversations about that, and so that's what I do. I also want to let you know that we do have an expert in the room who has already, I have a correction to my PowerPoint based to the expert on the room. My first slide here, that it says there's no state statute or DOE rule that covers district-managed charter schools. That is incorrect. There's actually turnaround rule, district rule, turnaround 6A.1099811 that's not in your thing, that talks about district-managed charter schools in a turnaround school option. Basically, in a nutshell, what that basically means that it couldn't be a district-managed charter school at Evergreen. So it could be a charter school, but it can't be a district-managed charter.
It's going to be a short presentation.
Oh, no, it's a longer presentation, but we can have that.
Because of,
Because it falls under external operator. The charter would fall under an external operator option. And they have specific rules about district-managed charter schools in that.
so because it is a turnaround school,
Correct.
a school in turnaround status, it could not be a district-run charter.
Correct. District-managed charter.
District managed, so it would have to be a completely charter
Correct.
company come in. Okay.
Correct.
And I think when he gets into the minutia, it'll make sense why, yeah.
Right. So, but state statute 1002.33 allows for sponsors and charters to negotiate separate contracts for additional goods and services, which is basically where the district-managed charter school came up. We talked about Miami-Dade district-managed charter schools. I had a good conversation with Dr. Nicole Jackson. She is the executive director of district-managed charter schools. I had a conference call with her on last Thursday after the meeting and got lots of good information from her on that thing.
And why did you call her?
Because the board had directed me to get information about district.
Because they're the only district that does it, right?
And they're the district that does. They have 7 district-managed charter schools in the district, and so they're the experts in the field on this. With a district-managed charter school maintains an independent board. They're completely independent. The charter school is responsible for generating their own FTE dollars, and Miami-Dade still charges the 5% management fee, and then they enter in a separate contract for that. So Miami-Dade charges the charter school a fee for the management services that they offer. Miami-Dade,
I got a question.
yes, sir.
So you said the charter school is still responsible for generating their own FTE?
Yes, sir.
So it's
So
not.
that's based upon their student enrollment. So they earn money from student enrollment.
Based on their enrollment?
Correct. Just like any other charter school.
Okay.
Isn't that what got us into trouble with?
With MMA?
So, and then going back to the next slide, Miami-Dade and each individual charter board enter into contract for services for the district manager and it's independent of the charter contract. So that the board sponsors the charter school, and you have a charter contract, and then they enter into a separate negotiated contract for services. The school district becomes a management company. There's lots of management companies that are out there, and the school board becomes a management company. And a charter school can choose any management company to do that. They don't have to choose us, but they can choose anything. But on a district-managed charter school, the charter school chooses the district to be their management company.
And in Miami-Dade, there was one charter school that was using Miami-Dade as the management company and then dropped them and went to somebody else,
Somebody
correct?
else, because somebody else, they could do it cheaper with somebody else.
Isn't that Kip? Didn't Kip do that?
No, ma'am, it wasn't good.
So, I'm just trying to wrap my head around all this.
Yes, sir.
So, the charter school can choose Marion County School Board as the management company.
If they're.
Or,
If the district and the charter school agree.
if they agree, or they could say, we want to go to Lake County or Sump County and use them as the management.
I don't.
Hypothetically,
That's what it says. And she said, she's looking at me like I'm like, yeah, he's right.
hypothetically, if the district is in the business of managing charter schools, it hasn't been done, but there's lots of things that haven't been.
What would be an example of another management company?
Charter Schools USA,
Or,
Renaissance, or
Okay.
or there was another company that, well, oh, and we had talked.
Renaissance, because like when we had Charter Schools USA is a management company that provides the services. And
Costs money.
going back, the charter school can choose any management company. Again, Miami-Dade still collects the 5% administrative fee that all charter schools collect for our basic administrative fees for being the pass-through for all the money and the handling their HR and their emails and all that kind of stuff. There's a separate management contract for each school that the district manages, that they pay for separately. And Miami-Dade charges a pure pupil fee, per pupil fee. I put an asterisk because we're going to talk more about that on another slide. What Miami-Dade does in their management services, they provide financial management, governance management, compliance support, student support, leadership support, and curriculum support. Again, when it comes to property, some are located in district-owned property and some are in their own buildings. Miami-Dade enters into a separate contract with each charter for leasing the facilities. So however the board and the charter decide to lease the facilities, that's up between the board and that charter facility. Miami-Dade has one charter school that leases a whole school that they had as a surplus school. They have one that is thing. They have one that was in a building that is now moved out into their own building, and the rest are in their own buildings.
And they charge $1.
That's up between the charter and the board.
Charge $1.
For the one,
For the one.
of them.
If she told me all their schools that are on their property, they charge $1 for their
Yeah,
lease.
but that's,
Because they got the space anyway. But they do have to pay the electric bill and all that.
yeah, the charter leasing contract includes not only the rent per se, whether it be $1 or whatever the board would set, but also the utilities, custodial, maintenance,
Based upon their percentage of the school use.
all that, correct. The Miami-Dade district staff that's dedicated just to district-managed charter schools alone. They have an executive director of district-managed charter schools. They have a coordinator. They have a financial accountant. They have an ESE staff. They have one full-time, and others are shared with the district as needed. And they have 3 academic coaches. Those are all unsalaried by the district. The district also contracts with an outside CPA firm to handle the audits and bill payment for the charter schools. Moving forward, and again, according to Dr. Nicole Jackson, there are startup costs if the district wants to be a district, get into that process, most of which are staff. Just on a basic level with MCPS, we would need a coordinator and an accountant. The salary and fringe of a coordinator is $105,000 and a senior accountant is $93,000. That's a salary and fringe just for startup. There's also, we don't know these costs, but there's the cost for financial management of that, which is running their budgets, running everything financially for them. Governance management, doing their board minutes, doing everything that costs. Compliance support, student support, leadership support, curriculum, plus the indirect costs for the MCPS, personnel, the expertise that we would have. Those are costs, and that's when we talk about the pure pupil fee. The district would find out what that costs us pure pupil, and that's what they charge the charter school as a fee. The district will lose money in the beginning, but there's a potential to break even if multiple schools are brought under the fold, like Miami-Dade. So there is a cost to the district for this, but with Miami-Dade, there's an economy of scale where they have 7 to do that. This is wrong. I'm taking the slide out, don't even look at that, because we've already talked about that. So that's district-managed charter schools, what I could pull together in a week. After talking with Dr. Nicole Jackson, who is very helpful. I've got her on retainer. I can call her anytime I want. And so, very helpful.
I would ask the question, in her opinion, was this a good move for Miami-Dade?
It was a good move for Miami-Dade because the first school they did was an ESE center school, which they had the expertise to be able to handle that they needed to have. But again, she stressed they lost money in the beginning because of the startup cost and what they had to do, and with the economy of scale. Over time, they're now self-sufficient based upon the number of schools that they have with their staff, but it took them time to get there.
But that board would have to be, whatever board, charter school board, they would have to have a structure
Yes, sir.
already in place, and they would have to have some finances as well.
Correct.
To enter into these contracts.
Yes, and Dr. Nicole Jackson stressed, again, we are the Miami-Dade, and when she was talking to her, her department is the management district. And again, with all this stuff, they only make recommendations. The charter school is still responsible, their board, for making the decisions. They make the recommendations, this is what we're going to do, and the board would agree.
It's like hiring a consultant.
Correct.
So have they ever taken on a charter school that was financially,
No, they haven't.
They have not.
okay.
That was
because-
financially.
Would they?
I can't speak for them.
I didn't finish hearing the question. That was financially what? Strapped?
Strap, that was in the position that we saw last week. Have they ever taken,
No, they haven't.
and there's probably very good reason for
No, they
that.
haven't. What they do on their district charters, in the beginning, a charter school that looks like it's going to be strapped financially, that is when they go to the district to assist them with any space they've got, because they get a $1 lease on the property that's sitting there unused anyway. And so if it starts out looking like it's not going to have a good, like it's a small, so they have one that's only got like 120 students in it. And so looks like they're not going to have the finances which is a good setup for charter supporters, because it is a partnership where you can have, like they can share campuses. 4 of their charter schools share campuses with other students, much like, I guess, MTI. And it gives a charter school a way to start instead of opening up with a $12,000 a month rent like Francis Marion had. So they have that money that they would spend on that, they have to put towards their costs with the district, because it's cheaper for them to do that then. But now your big-time charters like USA and those kind of places, they don't go into these district charter situations. It's
So,
new schools like maybe O'Kelly Charter that needed some space. The district, by state statute, provides them the space
If there's surplus.
with their surplus.
Land, if we have surplus land.
And so there was times, I guess that's a new statute, because there was a time when Francis Marion was over at the Phoenix Center, but we were charging, but if in today's world, they would be able to use that space because we have it and it's vacant.
If it's surplus.
Yeah. And we don't have to give it to them for $1. The statute says.
They do, though,
We could negotiate into that. The board and the charter could negotiate into that.
so basically,
But they do.
what I'm hearing is, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is that the district becomes a safety net for a charter school.
No, not a safety net.
That's
But they
what I'm
pay
hearing.
for
If
it.
you're saying they're paying for it, but if they get into a situation where they cannot
They
pay
have to
for
close.
it, no, that's not what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that we're going to provide a facility for them. We're going to provide some other resources for them, because we're managing their
State statute says we have to provide for any vacant property, any unused surplus
Surplus.
property. We have
Surplus.
to provide for them.
And
It's
they-
not our option. The state statute says we have to.
But that word is surplus. And right now, we're talking about keeping property and buying property, so we don't really even have surplus property for charter school.
We have surplus space at Lake Weir. We have space there that would hold charter school. We have seats there that would hold a charter school.
Okay. I'm not sure that Miami-Dade and Marion County is an apples-to-apples comparison. You know, you're talking a district of 212,000 students and 53,000 employees. And then we have Marion County with 43,000 students approximately and approximately 7,000 employees. So that's a pretty big disparity. The other thing is that we have two charter schools, Marion Charter and Ocala Charter, that have worked their hearts and guts out to be successful. And so therefore, in my eyes, it can be done, and it can be done very well and very successfully. At a glance, I don't know that I want to go down this road right now.
Well, and I actually agree. I don't believe that this district has the expertise to do that. Because it takes a really district with expertise, and I don't see that expertise within this district administration. And when it was started in Dade
I
County.
appreciate you all, so just know that. Thank you.
So they have 91 charter schools in Dade County, so they really have a tremendous percent, so they're super charter school friendly. And, but it's one thing that we are talking about while we're talking about this, Ocala Charter is telling us they're outgrowing their space. Could we possibly lease them some space at MTI temporarily while they find themselves some space, since we've obviously got the extra space right now, because they are now looking for a place for their charter school. And we've got, looks like we have some space.
And let's just go on the record by saying that we're friendly to anything that is going to help students succeed. And I just got the email about Ocala Charter's request, and it's fantastic that you are outgrowing and being so successful. So to me, that's a conversation for another day that warrants its own conversation.
Right. I think that's a separate individual conversation that we will, I'm sure, entertain very soon. Okay.
But I
Good.
agree. I don't believe this district has the expertise to pull this off.
I'm looking at the expertise in the audience. Thank you, guys.
I really think
We don't have
we
the
need this discussion.
Yeah,
This is not a charter, this is not a heavily pro-charter district, and it's not going to work.
We're pro-kid.
I think we all pretty much concur that right now we're not going to go down this road. I didn't hear anything from Ms. King.
Oh, I'm just listening today. I think I'm open to working with anything that's going to help our students. Again, I'm going to bring up last month's charter school issue. I felt, and I know, and I think if we did have the right leadership, the right opportunities, I think they could have been a smoother transition. But that's not what happened. It's been very difficult. It's unchartered. But, as a board member, or even as a person, I'm not afraid to try anything new and different just because it's not something the way we have always done it. And, for example, I had someone say to me, they kind of felt for me last week because I said that, I'm making, or that things are more complicated than they should be. And they said they felt from me, but and it's like, well, there's things that you can't see. But maybe sometimes people are so close to it that they can't see and do what's right to help students. And I'm still dismayed at our students from last month that this hasn't been a smoother transition. And when I see it, it's heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking for our students, it's heartbreaking for the principal, it's heartbreaking for the teachers, because it's been unorganized, and I'm still looking for the leader that can lead the charge to help make this a smoother transition. And so I don't want to be negative. I'm not here to fight, but I am not seeing a district that is charter school friendly. And maybe it could have been said nicer or we don't want to hurt feelings, but absolutely, that's what's happened. And last week was a perfect, and another example, if we were district charter school friendly, then the past charter school wouldn't have had a hard time to come to this district and say, hey, we are in trouble, we need help, and we can work together. There wasn't any sign of that, and instead there was a ball dropped on us. And, you know, but had we been good at not even just communicating, but connecting with all vested state members in this, we might have a different outcome. And so I'm just going to leave it at that.
And I can't speak for previous boards because I wasn't on them, but what I will say is that I feel very strongly that this board is failure unfriendly. And there's a difference. You know, we just celebrated the success of Marion Charter, Ocala Charter. I feel very friendly and supportive towards them, but I don't feel friendly and supportive towards anything that is not helping our kids move forward. This board has made it clear that we're all about building relationships. So I am dismayed that if Marion Military, and they had to know in August that they were going down the tubes, that no one from that school reached out to us with the relationships that you have. You're not unapproachable. You've supported that school forever.
This school district
You weren't on this
is-
board for the last 7
Right,
years. It's not the
is
truth.
I've watched closely.
Well, just a few years ago, they
I'll leave it right
had
there.
administrators come into their schools, which they didn't do to other schools. So there is
Mr. Ayers,
history.
I want to say, I think Mr. Ayers has truly gone out of his way to work with Francis Marion, and I, because he and I have had those conversations, and so Mr. Ayers has truly worked hard with Francis Marion even prior to this. So I don't think that statement is exactly correct for
It takes
all
more than one
involved.
person to pull this off.
But I think there were others that were good. And as far as the transition, we met yesterday, the Parent Advisory Committee and I met with Ms. Beasley yesterday. It was a very positive meeting. They opened great lines of communication. She shared with them what was transpiring, what the meeting was, and she too wants the transition to go well. I think they are now comfortable understanding she is their direct line of communication, and even with the students. The parents, I felt after the meeting, felt good about the direction that we were moving. I was not able, because I had a previous meeting to attend last night, so I don't know how the ROTC meeting went, but I felt comfortable. They have set parameters, they have set a next meeting date, and they are under the understanding that Mrs. Beasley is very approachable, that she wants this to work for those students.
Well, I got a call yesterday from 2 parents that were irate because they went to a meeting apparently, I don't know the timeline, maybe Friday or something. They had their first advisory council meeting. She was so upset I couldn't get the dates. I think it was Friday they had their advisory council meeting, their first little meeting. And the parents came with some questions to her and stuff. She said her child apparently texted her and said, we are going into an assembly or a group where we're all going in before Miss Beasley, and she's to address these issues. The parent was so upset because these were parent questions, and before she talked to the parents, she went straight to the kids. She said, they are driving wedges between us and our children because they're communicating first with the kids, then with us, and at home. She said, this just reminds me of the old days when 185 kids that was in that school right then left their traditional schools because of kind of all this same stuff, this family chaos, this not being parent friendly, not working with the kids, and these kids were the majority of them were 1s and 2s when they came into the school, and it was just horrible. And she said, I just see it all happening again. Our Matthews,
Oh,
So
kids are
that,
fed to the wolves
so,
again.
so that meeting yesterday morning was the same meeting that they have the first week of school. It was the orientation meeting where they went over the Code of Student Conduct. Mrs. Beasley yesterday had all the notes on what was gone over. They had scheduled that meeting Friday for yesterday morning, even prior to all of this. And Mrs. Beasley shared with the parents that in high school, that she has always treated high school students with respect, and that always in an orientation, they are going over what the rules of the school are. There are more rules in our public schools than there was at Francis Marion. I am telling you that if the parents have a concern, rather than getting on their Facebook pages and talking among each other, they need to go directly to Mrs. Beasley. I felt that the meeting was very constructive yesterday. She answered their questions. She is going to be doing an app,
Remind app.
a Remind app. The parents ask, how can we communicate better? How can you get information better to us? She was incredibly receptive of everything that they had to say. So they are going to do a Remind app where she will get information out to the parents. And that was one of the solutions. The parents that were there agreed that this transition, because their children are coming from a school that did not have all of the rules that we have, that this has been a transition. And that simple things like using the restrooms in the buildings where you are in class rather than walking across campus. And so they don't have free reign of MTI as they did at Francis Marion. The parents yesterday understand that. They would communicate that out as the advisory committee. So I know that students are telling their parents what they perceive, and perception, as we all know, is reality. But if the parents would contact the principal, then they could hear from her what actually transpired. I think for many of the students, they are pleased with having the opportunity to be at a school that is offering them more than they had at Francis Marion. For the majority of those students, I understand, they are getting into class, they are enjoying their CTE. The CTE teachers are truly enjoying having them there because it increases the numbers in their classes. So change is hard, and perception is reality. And as we move through this, the transition will become smoother. Students that misbehave will be disciplined, as all students in all of our schools. There is a code of conduct that must be followed that not necessarily was anywhere close to the code of conduct that they had at Francis Marion.
You're exactly right, Ms. McCall.
So I'm just telling you that I think yesterday's meeting was a breakthrough, and that those parents who are representing for the advisory committee came away optimistic. Were all of the transitional problems solved yesterday? Absolutely not. But knowledge is power, and communication is the gateway. And I feel like there was a breakthrough yesterday.
I heard what Ms. King said in her comments, that it has been an extremely difficult and rough transition for them.
Yes, ma'am.
It really has, but it's also been extremely difficult for us as well, trying to pull all this together. It's our responsibility to make sure that we stabilize this situation as fast as possible. It hasn't been going it's been going at the rate that we can move it at, considering a holiday and all those things. I have to commend all those people that have worked hard over the holidays, trying to keep pulling. We keep coming back to the table, trying to do this. The thing about this is that we have to do it with some level of sensitivity, because there has to be, these kids have been just, it's going to affect them. It's really going to affect them. And I was on the bus going to Tallahassee yesterday, and I got a call from one of the ladies that presented last week, and she was concerned. She gave me some of her concerns about their ranks, maintaining their ranks. She gave me some concerns. She told me about the meeting what Ms. Beasley had and the perception. She's like, oh, they're not MMA students, and Ms. Beasley said they can't be MMA students. And I had to take it upon myself to say, and inform her, ma'am, they're not MMA students anymore. Maybe it was not taken in such a sensitive way, maybe it wasn't said in such a way of sensitive, but technically they're not MMA students, and we have to be conscious of that, and that we were working on the ranking system. I did speak to Dr. Mayer this morning about that ranking system, and hopefully they're going to be pulling a separate battalion over to help these kids so that they can maintain their ranking structure. From my understanding, last week, one of the biggest issues was uniforms. From my understanding, that issue has been resolved. Am I correct?
And in the process of fine tuning even more.
Okay, so, I mean, and then the other thing that the lady on the phone told me yesterday was about them having the ability to assemble. I think part of the culture that they really wanted to have in this new program was that they want to be able to assemble or have formation in the morning around the flagpole and a formation in the evening to bring the flag down. Hopefully, we're going to be able to work that out as well.
And Ms. Beasley said yesterday, yes, they're looking at a 0 period, and she had already been in touch with the ROTC instructors that would be there, so that she mentioned that yesterday, and so that will be happening at that school.
I think the silver bullet for this school is, and I don't know Mrs. Beasley, except just as she's presented in here. I mean, I did a couple of graduations with her up at Lake Weir High, and that's the extent that I know her. I don't know anything about anything else. But to have a principal that will keep strong, positive ties with these parents and keep these parents interested so they don't throw their hands up and give up, and because like these kids, we've heard testimony after testimony of just the tremendous success because of the different ways they disciplined. So in the Marion County school system, they might do something that'll get them a 10-day suspension or a 3-day suspension, and at Francis Marion, they would say 10 push-ups. Boom.
That is against
But see,
Army
let me
regulations. You
say
cannot do
let me
that.
say There were some discipline ways, and I found this out separately, that as the Marion County School District, that
They weren't allowed to do.
we can't do it because
But can the charter school?
let me say it this way. I went to Florida A&M. Florida A&M was in trouble because of hazing.
Yeah.
Killing kids.
So there is a culture that's there that is real close to hazing, if not hazing, and that's part of their discipline process. We can't endorse that. So there's
don't know
going
anything about the discipline, so that doesn't make
there's going to be some changes. I mean, there has to be some changes. They have to fall in our code of conduct. Can we be sensitive? Can the deans be more sensitive to how they discipline? Completely, yes, because of but we can't say drop down and give me 20 and the kid have a
Football
heart
coaches
attack.
do it all the time.
They had to stop it because it was hazing.
The football coaches can't
Yes,
make
ma'am.
kids do
I
football.
played football under that type of regimen. It wasn't hazing then, but times have, you're talking about 30 years ago. Things have changed. We cannot do that anymore. So, I mean, we have to be sensitive to what they've gone through, but we can't put ourselves in a situation where we're being legally liable for some things.
And I agree with my namesake to my right, that in the end, where the rubber meets the road is at the school level. And it is about the principal and these new students and the teachers building the relationships with each other and working with the advisory board. And thank you very much, Ms. McCall, for taking that on, especially during a very stressful time to work through this.
Parents are used to being involved.
And exactly, and to continue that involvement, having the principal be the go-to. We all have our own ideas on this board. We're all strong personalities. We all advocate for different types of education. We all have our passions, and that's great. But in the day-to-day, that bell's ringing, those kids are coming. It's in that school situation that the majority of the problem-solving and the majority of the relationships need to be cultivated, built, strengthened.
I agree. I was there yesterday when they
too.
had that meeting.
Oh, not the
Yesterday
meeting.
morning?
No.
At the
afternoon.
ROTC meeting with the students?
How did it go?
Oh, how did it go? Well, it was very enlightening and it was good. And that's when I realized, I do think they've had so much transition, because I did see students that acted out. They did, but I also saw a principal who stood before them and assured those students that she's there for them. And she worked with them well. She had a sense of humor with them. So, when I was hearing the students were being harassed, I was there and I did not see any harassment at all. Actually, it may have been reversed.
Well, I know when Miss Beasley was at Lake Weir High School, that was one of my high schools. I don't recall getting any calls in any way from parents that were unhappy with Mrs. Beasley, like I do from some of the other
Right,
schools.
she did. But again, we have 185 students, or whatever the number is. 120, 12. They're upset because someone moved their cheese.
Right.
And they're not happy with that. And then I followed the students into a classroom with a teacher. And I have to say, again, I saw some disrespect to that teacher, but I also saw a teacher who was very professional, very kind, had a sense of humor, and he was even trying to relate with them, because even at one point when the students were a little disruptive, he looked at him and he goes, "What is it that you have to do when you sit still and not do anything?" And all of a sudden I hear him say, "At ease." The students, they stopped and they were at ease, I guess,
A whole different lingo.
And so
They've been
that's
conditioned.
what I'm seeing. And that's why when I understand the frustration for the students, the principals, the teachers, everybody's frustrated at this point. And that's when I'm like, where are we at, with somebody to lead the charge? And I do still believe that Mr. McCollum is the person, or maybe I won't say the name, but the former principal is probably the person that can still lead that charge and is the linchpin. And one thing I can suggest, and I think maybe we could do this, is I think this person may have been hired as a dean, and I don't think he was satisfied with that. Maybe there was not enough money. But what if we hired him as a consultant, at least till June, until he can be their sergeant, or I don't know what they are. Just someone that those students have someone to relate with. He knows the student. So, and he may not even be interested at this point anymore, because I know there's time that is just ran by. But would it be possible that we could hire him as a consultant? Maybe the same pay that he was making before, and that way he could be there to work with these students, I don't know
I'm
what
so glad
your
you brought that
thoughts-
up. I'm so glad you brought that up, because I agree with you. He was the linchpin. The school was not making any progress until he came on board. He turned things around academically. It was clear at our meetings that he has the students' respect. It is up to the students a little bit, too, to dig deep in this situation, especially if they're going into the military. They're going to be faced with a lot bigger changes than what they're being faced with right now. So they have some responsibility in this as well, to be behaving a lot more respectfully, and we know that they can, because we know that they have. When we move administrators, for example, to a different role, in the middle of the year. It's my understanding that their pay is frozen because they've already signed that contract, and then the following year, if it's lesser pay, then that would be implemented. Am I correct?
This is before July 1st.
Right. So in this situation, I know it would be someone coming from a charter school, but maybe the same idea could be put into play, that he would maintain his salary, as you were saying, for the rest of this year, in hopes that that has been the difficulty and why he has decided, according to my understanding, not to come on board.
I've just.
Which
heard
took me by
rumors.
surprise. I didn't know that. I thought he was already working.
Okay, Ms. King, you brought something up really interesting. When we received the financial plan, that we save this much if we do this plan, we save this much if we do, somewhere I saw this number of 500,000, I don't remember.
Revenue, yes.
If we did the MTI. There's money in those students, FTE, that would cover a setup like this. You know, we aren't big enough, you know, to do a $300,000 district coordinator, district financial planner, and all that to run a district charter school. But we can have our own twist. Jay County doesn't have the only run on new things.
Right.
If we seriously, Ms. King, we've got the money there. If we want to make this well, now we call it whatever we're going to call it, military choice. If we want to make this academy of cadets one that is known in the state, because our Mr. Vianello, God knows, and this entire community knows, if anybody could help pull this off, it's him with our choice academies. We have him sitting there, we have you standing here, and we have Mr. McCollum, who could be the piece that holds a lot of this together to help this develop into what we want it to develop. This school could end up with 400 students in it as an academy. It could be huge. And so, so I am very interested in us hiring Mr. McCollum. We have the money there. They've already shown us on the financial documentation that the money's there. And one thing's for sure, we provide a lot for our IB students. It costs us a lot more than $70,000 a year, or whatever he would need to make for our test and all the stuff we do with IB for these kids at that level. These are students who the traditional school system has already failed them once. Every single one of them is why they're there. And all those that graduated before them. Now, if we can meet somewhere in the middle, we can't do the district charter, the sky's gonna fall if we do that, I've heard. So, if we can at least bring the leader that turned this school around in so many ways to the level, almost like an external operator, like we see Miss Elsper, but just not pay that kind of money. I think that would be a great plan, Ms. King, to bring him on to work with our principal in a consultant, and we might figure out another title for him, but we're saying consultant right now, because goodness knows, we've paid like the lady that you know from Tallahassee.
Dr. Phelps.
She's up to like, I don't know, 150, 200,000 or whatever we paid her for consulting fees over the last couple of years. And to help the students at their early levels. And so these are kids at the higher levels. Also, I think that we can afford a consultant for them too. So how do y'all feel about that?
Well, I'd like to say, I'm going to say double negative. I do not disagree. So I do agree, and I was going to say before you brought up Dr. Phelps that we have a great track record of choosing consultants that benefit our students, and at the end of the day, let's remember that that's our job, is to take care of our kids. We're not a jobs program, to borrow a phrase I've heard from somebody before. So we're not a jobs program, but we are in the business of taking care of kids and doing the best for them. And as Ms. Thrower mentioned, that the success of Francis Marion academically academically
Eyes on one man.
started when Mr. McCullum entered the picture. So if you choose consensus on that, we can start that consulting contract and move forward. So we'll wait for you to have that discussion. But as you discuss, know that we do have a track record of successful consulting and that we can support that, absolutely.
And talking about service to students, yes, IB has a fabulous, many years-long track record of success. That's why they continue to get the support. But I also spent 14 passionate years serving Hillcrest School, which is our students that have the most significant needs, and we serve them extremely well. So if we can serve IB and we can serve Hillcrest, certainly we can figure out a way as a district to very well serve and enhance the students from
Because remember,
Marion Military
and
Academy.
these Marion military kids, these are the ones that are going to be fighting for you tomorrow. They're going to be the ones over there in Iran or wherever we stick them. And so I think that if we show a level of support for them now, I think it's very important because they will be our military leaders possibly tomorrow. And wouldn't it be wonderful if Marion County, Dr. Mayor, could send 4 appointments to West Point or something out of our academy? I mean, the sky's the limit if we all just get together on this and
Yeah, and we have across the county, we do have a large population of young people who do go into the military. So, yeah, and I think opening up this choice option to more students is a great idea as well, so.
And now we're getting on the same page, which is going to be very important to the parents of these former MMA students.
I think if Mr. McCullum comes on, that's going to be a shot of happy to them.
Well, we could just ask. I mean, he may say no, but I think if we were all on the same page and we could present something to that sooner than later, I think that would be beneficial to those students.
And I think it would help Mrs. Beasley. if
And
you
it
wanted
would
to.
surely help Miss Beasley. She's doing her best. I have no doubt. I've saw it in action. But I do think he is probably the linchpin at this point.
McCollum has been one of the stabilizing factors.
Yeah.
And I don't have an issue with him coming on as a consultant. I just have, my biggest concern is going to be at what point are we going to have a break?
We might not.
At some point, there has to be.
It would almost like being an AP, like,
Listen,
look at our consultant bill. Look at our consultant
I'm
bill.
not saying that. I'm saying that at some point, kids have to move forward. I had some kids, for instance, I had some kids in my Sunday school class once, and they were the elementary kids, and because they loved the teacher so well, they wanted to stay. They were in the 7th and 8th grade and did not want to go to the middle school level. At some point, they have to transition up, and that's all I'm saying.
No, they don't have
At
to
some point-
transition out and graduate and go into the military, a lot of them.
we have to learn to live without people.
Exactly.
Well, that can be part of our expectations for this
For him,
contract.
if that's what we, because I heard what Ms. King said. She was like, maybe we can pull him in for the rest of the year. I heard what Ms. Thrower said, maybe we could pull him. But there has to be, we have to condition these kids that you're not going to always have the same teacher. You're not going to have the same person in your life forever. You have to, I would have loved to have this one teacher that I had for all my career education, but I had to go on to the next and go on to the next.
But they have
That's
their
my
principal
concern.
for their whole 4 years of high school. There's a person, the stability of the high school principal, the football coach, or whatever they've got, they have their football coach, and their head coach of the entire football team and that sort of thing. Kids respond to mentors, and he has been a great.
Stability.
He has been a great mentor. And as the school takes hold and maybe it grows, the funding for this position, and it might turn into something different than a consultant. It might turn into an assistant principal, or, I don't know, it could turn into something different.
Well, he, and I'm not trying, I don't want to go too deep into this. If you put a person, you say an assistant principal, well, you kind of make accommodations where he is right now. as far as what he does outside of the district. And we can't, if you set a precedent like that, I think he need to be off 1 week out of every month.
Only because he needed to supplement his income.
He'll be.
He needed to supplement his income, but if he didn't have to.
As a consultant,
Well,
yes,
we're-
but
we're-
as an AP,
we're
are
not
you gonna
even-
allow every AP in the district to have a week off?
No, we would pay him enough to where he didn't have to supplement his
I,
income.
I think that this is, we need to look into this. Number one, we need to see if Mr. McCollum would even be interested. He may
Right,
not
he may
be.
not.
And then look at how do we form this so it's workable, him as a consultant, not to overshadow what the principal's doing. We're going
Correct.
to be very careful of that. And I would be willing to look at that. And so, I think most of us are in consensus on that, so.
I just want us to
Sure.
be, I just want us to move cautiously on how we do this, because we don't need to set some precedents that we can't continue.
Well, I think that if he comes in as a consultant, like any of our other consultants, and he is on a contract for a specific amount of time, possibly through the end of this year, and then be reevaluated, as all consultants are. I know we don't sign any consulting contracts, I don't believe, for longer than a year. Am I correct, Ms. Green?
I believe that's true.
Okay, so we would sign it till the end of this year and reevaluate.
We don't even sign principal contracts but for a year.
And he probably has a commitment to whatever else he's doing one
Which
week
is
a year,
fine
so,
if he's a consultant.
right, and we could
Right.
incorporate that
It's
now
very different than an employee.
and then
Right.
renegotiate.
Right. If he's a consultant, I don't have an issue, but my thing was trying to make him an employee and still be able, that's,
Not right now.
right.
No.
Okay, so I concur with you guys if that's what we want to do.
Well, you know, and since this is uncharted territory, we
all
don't
agree,
really
Ms.
know
Stacy.
how it's going to turn out.
Do you
I don't
agree,
think
Ms.
you're
Stacy?
sorry.
You said we were agreeing. I thought we were agreeing with you.
No, I said, and because it's uncharted territory, we don't know what Mr. McCollum.
Right, we don't.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know what Mr. McCollum's going to do for this school.
So let's have the conversation with him.
Okay, so at least we're open for conversation. And
All right.
again, he may say no, but I think it's good to at least entertain it.
And hopefully we can convey that to the parents and let them know that we're working. We haven't stopped working trying to get them stabilized. We're still in the process. Okay?
And look at us, after a very spirited discussion, we've come to consensus.
Yeah, any public comment on the,
On my presentation.
oh, I'm sorry.
Poor Mr. Ayers.
You got any questions, Mr.? You have any questions, Mr. Ayers?
I need coffee.
Can we help you?
I'll make sure we're done.
We're done.
Any public comment now? Seeing none, board concerns. Dr. Mayor? Any concerns?
No, I'm good.
Elena? Attorney? Ms. Stacy? Ms. McCall?
Yes, and you've seen me checking my phone. It's because all the groups that I have helped organize, I wanted to be sure that everything was going well with the Ray and Associates conversations, and they are, with the groups that I have helped organize, so I'm happy about that. I hope all the rest of them are going, and I hope people will come out to the town hall meetings. It is absolutely imperative, and I think a lot of people have participated in the survey. It has been out and about. I want to thank Kevin Christian, he's not here. Oh, Kevin Christian's right there. I want to thank you for all the work that you've put into helping us get this message out. So, thank you very much. Today and tomorrow, in my mind, are exciting days. So, and again, I reiterate, I enjoyed my meeting yesterday. I will stay as the liaison with these parents. And I think this decision will help with that. I agree with you, Reverend Cummings, that change is very difficult and these kids need, actually, adversity brings strength. And down the road, these kids will be stronger for this transition that they went through, and we cannot hold their hand all along the way. They have to be able to take some of those leaps without hand-holding. Thank you.
Ms. King?
I don't have anything.
Ms. Dora?
I
Can't wait for tonight's school board meeting. That's all.
I too have been sitting here trying to keep track on my phone at the same time because of the meetings with the different groups. So I encourage all those that have gotten the invites to go to the individual meetings with Ray and Associates, but I also encourage those to attend the town hall meetings as well. That information, your input is vital to us in this process. I do want to say to the parents of the kids that came over from MMA, this has been a difficult process, but we are going to stay on the course, and we're going to continue to work with them until we get it resolved, until it's a smooth day, till they can go to school one day and there is no issues. So we're gonna stay on. I think our board is that dedicated to it, and we're all concerned about the situation. And we're not just concerned; we're actively concerned about it. So we will be making sure. And parents, we will be stopping by MTI to assess the situation. And again, I thank our district staff for what they've done to try to right the ship.
And they did it during Christmas break.
And they did over the holidays. So thank you, guys. We look forward to the meeting this afternoon. Any other
Who's going to extend the invitation to the commissioner to come down to Evergreen?
Yeah, we need to be
ASAP.
sure that that gets done ASAP.
All right, that should come from the superintendent.
And you can, want to tag team it too.
We can do it. All right, and we will be trying to get him here AAASP. You put whatever tag on that
stands
A, you put on that, but we need to get him here as soon as possible. And again, I do think that we all, as board members, should be there when he comes. I think that makes a big difference. As soon as we get it, Elena will let you know so that
Be
it can be.
sure that it's not the 22nd or 23rd.
Right, we'll be
he'll
in
be up there
Tallahassee. We'll be in Tallahassee.
He will be there.
Yeah,
Perhaps we, as a board, could have a meeting with him.
a delegation meeting with them. Yeah. Sure. Okay. All right. All hearts and minds, that's church.
Onward and forward.
Okay, it's been a little church today.
That's right, amen.
Amen.
Hearing no other comments, means adjourned at 10:51.